So the intention of this short video clip is to give you an introduction to the graded unit. Some of you may well have had some experience doing graded units if you've done an HN course elsewhere. If not, the concept might be slightly new to you. I think the thing to try and get across is that really it's not any different to the processes that you've been through already with us in terms of producing a project. So really, the final outcome, the final aim of the graded unit is for you to produce and make a piece of work, make a project in the way that we've been doing all year. The difference is that well, I suppose the purpose of the graded unit is that it's as supposed to be a combination of all the things that you've been doing during the course of the year, and the idea is that we kind of then set you a project that gets you to kind of test out and test out those ideas, use those ideas, etc. The difference with the graded unit is that it's specific about the way it's split up and works, and the other obviously difference is that you actually get a grade of A, B or C for the work. So that in itself often causes some kind of contention as we move forward, but let's try and put that out of our minds because it's really the least important thing we need to worry about at this particular moment in time. So let's talk about the structure of the graded unit and how the graded unit works. Up on my city, there's a large diagram at the top of the site that really just explains the way the graded unit is structured and works. And the idea is you start by producing what we call a planning document, and in there will be an outline. You'll be putting a brief, your aims, your objectives, the kind of issues that you're going to work with, and I'll come back to talk about those in a bit more detail in a minute. And then if we were back in the college, you would be having a mentoring session during that from one of your tutors who would be kind of discussing the project with you and your aims and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the idea is actually take about 6 hours to complete. Then you've got the main bulk of the project, the thing that you're used to doing and you've done with us since you kind of got to the college is the development. So you go away, you get a sketchbook, you develop a project, you finish a project, and you present a project. So that forms the bulk of the work. And then again, during that period, you'd get some mentoring along the way. There's not any specific talk component to the graded unit. The idea is that it's a self-initiated project and you just get feedback from your tutors. Again, that really isn't anything too dissimilar to what we do anyway. And then there are 6 hours at the end where you go away and produce an evaluation that evaluates your project. So on the website, I've got that as a PDF which you can download, and then I've put in a notional timeline for you. Okay. As far as mentoring goes, that'll be just a case of when you can emailing us stuff to have a little look at and review where and when and how and if possible. Okay. So what we've got in here is the brief inside assessments. Okay. And let's take you through the brief to start with, and then we'll go back to taking you through the process that you're going to need to do to complete the graded unit. Now then, there's a bit of blurb about this being a self-initiated project, and the aim of this project and the aim of the graded unit is to allow you to be much more in control of the type of work that you want to make. So there's a whole list up here of its videos, sound work, computational work using processing, for example, interactive processes, traditional handmade, rendered approaches. All of these are possible. Okay, you decide, and you decide the kind of type of work you want to make. Starting to sort of think about now where your work's going and the directions of travel that you're going in. So moving on to the actual themes, you'll see that we've picked up really from where you've been doing with the cybernetic project, and we've given you two keywords, contraption and automation. So really it's the same kind of zone, the same sort of area that we've been in and working in up until now. Okay, So you're to go away and produce a project based on either, both, combination of these things. Okay, so there's an introduction that explains that goes into some detail about why that's what we've put in for the graded unit. You can read that at your leisure. And then the task is for you to say to respond to these concepts of automation. Okay. And then the process will allow you to go through the project. Okay. Thinking about key dates, key locations. Okay. In here, we've put in some sort of commentary about maybe thinking about where the piece might be displayed and worked. Would it be designed to go in a gallery, any type of gallery space, or perhaps it's more specific to one particular location? So there's all sorts of possibilities there about how you think about where you're going to put the work, and that's for you to decide. Okay, and that's what we'll be doing in the planning document, and that's what the planning document's for. Okay, some of the things to think about are key dates, key locations, key technology developments, its implication on society, which I'll talk about in another video, etc. And of course, other artworks that kind of are responding to this. So these are some of the things you want to be thinking about. Artists who dealt with this subject matter, that are associated with the brief. So the planning document itself, I've got a more detailed, I'm going to give you some more detailed information about planning, but really what you're trying to do is outline the intentions for your project, okay? Describe what you're intending to do, okay? Not in any great detail because you haven't done it yet. The kind of media that you're going to be working with: film, video, interaction, processing, coding, creative coding, traditional media, etc., etc., etc. Any issues that are starting to be associated with the project, and then starting to firm that into some aims and objectives, the sorts of research areas you're going to be looking at, and the kind of resources that you may need for the project, and a timeline. Okay. And as I say, we ask you to present this as an A4 document, and for the graded unit 1, it's 500 words. And then the development. Again, this is familiar to you. Okay. Project research, artists and designers whose work you've been inspired by, all the usual elements of a finished project in there. Okay, so you can read through that. Then there's an evaluation. I'm not going to dwell too much upon that just now. We may actually come back to that towards the end of the project, and when we actually have to do it, rather than go into any great detail about that now. So in essence, that's the what the graded unit is for and about. In terms of supporting you with that, I'm going to just talk just quickly to the project plan, because that's the element you're going to be dealing with first of all. And project planning. I've put in a document in here that simplifies the idea. So take this document, download it, and use these headings. Okay, and in here are the headings we'd like you to put in. Okay, so obviously the project title might not be the first thing you do, but certainly at some point you'll need a title for the project. A general preamble about the background, about your thinking, the context of what you're thinking, the idea, and where the idea might have come from. Is there a history there that you can draw upon? Then your statement of intent or brief, depending on how you want to think about it. This is tell us what you're actually wanting to do and wanting to make. Okay, so you're quite specific here. The introduction is a much more kind of woolly background preamble to the project, just warming us up, I guess. You then, any issues that come out of your analysis of what you're trying to do. And then we are looking for creative objectives, okay, as well as technical objectives, and perhaps what you want to learn from the project, okay. I'm going to remove methodology from this, okay, because I don't really want you worrying about that. We introduced that concept in much more detail in the second year, so I'm going to take that out of this document. We'd like you to comment on research and the kind of research resources, and then the physical resources that you'll be needing for the project, and then to produce some kind of a timeline. I've got a kind of very simplistic example down here, okay? And I'm going to go through, I'm just going to take methodology out. And so you got a title, let's do a project about anger, okay? And then an introduction would be, you just talk about anger in its general sense, maybe indicating how anger has been used in art to generate art, or other creative expressions. So, you know, giving us a context about anger and rage. And then you're going to create a film that represents anger through body movement. So there's your brief, okay? Issues is obviously how you represent this. How would you go about representing anger? How would you show anger? So that's a creative problem. Yeah. And then the aims and objectives. Well, obviously your aim and objective is to use body movement to express anger. And then obviously research, anger management websites, other artists who've dealt with issues of anger, as I've said before, and then resources, red paint, being slightly facetious there. Okay, so that's the planning document. I've got some rather good examples up here. Now then, I've got a second year. Now the second years go into their planning document in much more detail, but this is a good chance for you to really put in a bit of practice before your second year. And this is a very good plan, and it's based around the same brief that you're doing. So I think this might be very helpful. So there's an introduction there to the general notion of where this particular student is thinking and the kind of things she's been looking at in terms of her research. Okay, so she's put that together. They have to do 1,000 words, so obviously the document's going to be a bit longer. So there's some real good background information about contraptions and automation that warms us up nicely and gives us some of the clues to what the sort of direction they were heading in. Okay, and then the brief itself, it doesn't have to be long, the brief, but it's the quality of what they're trying to do here. And for this project, I intend to focus on the connection and disconnection technology can cause. That's nice, okay? So there's a kind of theoretical issue going on here, representing this juxtaposition through the design for an automated contraption, looking into how and if automation alienates and isolates society or frees them. So there's an issue really already starting to get unpicked there in the brief. So that's what they're trying to do. Okay, they haven't really been that specific about how they're going to do it, what they're going to do it, but they've really focused us in on the theme and idea and this notion of alienation and disconnection. So this allows for some really nice creative issues. Well, what are the positive and negatives of technology? Yeah, looking at facts, not opinions. That's very good. Yeah, and then obviously designing contraptions and machinery. The technical issues is fairly self-explanatory. You can see this has actually been written, you know, since we started the lockdown, because this is a project they're working on at the moment. And then I like the creative and social objectives here to create a design that simultaneously illustrates connection and disconnection between technology, ultimately showing the viewers that technology comes with both of these things, leaving it up to the viewer to decide which outweighs the other. Yeah. And then this idea of exploring the nature and relationship of technology. So you can see that these aren't woolly statements. These really give us a theoretical direction for the project. Okay. So there we go. So we've got that. So the second years deal with this idea of a methodology, which we'll talk more about next year when we get involved in the sort of philosophical aspects of the course, but don't worry too much about that for what you're doing. And then the more kind of obvious stuff, the research areas, resources, etc., etc. And I think she's attached a Gantt chart somewhere. There will be a Gantt chart that she's attached, which is not here, for her timeline. So you can see there are plenty of resources. Okay, so there are others. As I say, I'm not going to talk too much about the planning and development. There's a couple of boards in here. I think these are things that we've talked about a lot and we're used to using. So this was a project from a student who was doing some tracking work using, I think, a Connect box a couple of years back. So this is his development work and the final project. And there's some imagery that come out for a final board. Okay, so you've seen that sort of thing before. That's not too scary for you. Okay, so that's really an overview to the graded unit. There is some more support material. I'm going to go through both of these in a separate video rather than overload this particular video just now, and then the cybernetic PowerPoint from last block, because I would suggest that's still relevant. So I'll talk to these in a separate video for you, and then the Arduino stuff should you be going down that route. But of course, there's no necessity to go down that route. How you go about tackling this, as I say, is entirely up to you. Okay, I think that should cover the graded unit just now. I think the most important thing to realize is that this is a very different set of circumstances we're working in. And I don't want anyone to get too stressed about, as I say, the type of grade they're going to get for this. A lot of it's going to be based on, a lot of the assessment, as you probably gathered now, is based on work that you've been doing throughout the year, and a lot of you have been doing some great work. So there's a pretty big clue to how we're viewing you as a group and the types of grades that we're going to be giving out at the end of the year. But more importantly, use this to build a portfolio, start to move in a direction that you're interested in, and to get some practice for next year. Because when you do the graded unit in the second year, we won't hopefully be in a lockdown situation, and the grades become quite important in terms of, when you get university places, etc., you often need a conditional offer of A's and B's and things like that. So use this as a practice, but certainly don't get too stressed about the grades certainly this session. Okay, I think that should do us for now. Okay.